I'm Abigail. I'm sitting in my new home, a place I bought with my own hard-earned money, free from the shadow that once loomed over me. The sun is streaming through the windows, and the peace I feel is almost tangible. But it wasn't always like this. I remember the day the courtroom doors closed behind me. It was a cold, silent place, not just because of the air conditioning but because of the heavy atmosphere. My sister, Lily, stood there, stripped of her glamour. She was wearing a simple beige dress, her hair tied back, and no trace of the makeup or designer labels that she used to flaunt. The judge read the charges: felony identity theft, mortgage fraud, and forgery. My name echoed in that cold room like an old wound being ripped open. When they asked how she pled, she looked at me with those pleading eyes, as if I was supposed to rescue her once again. She mumbled, "Guilty, but I didn't mean to hurt anyone." I almost laughed, but I held it in. The prosecutor presented the evidence: emails, applications, digital signatures, and surveillance footage of her signing documents in my name. She started to cry. Whether they were real tears or rehearsed, I didn't care. The judge then asked if I wanted to speak. I stood up, not for revenge, but to set the record straight. "This wasn't an accident," I said firmly. "It was a series of decisions to use me without my consent, to silence me with guilt, and to build a life on the ruins of my credit." She didn't just steal my name, she stole years of my trust. When I confronted her, she begged for mercy not because she was sorry, but because she got caught. She is the architect of her own downfall. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved him off. I continued, "She's not the victim here. She's the one who made a choice, over and over again." The judge nodded, and the sentencing was postponed. But the damage was done, and this time, it was hers. As I walked out, reporters were waiting, but I didn't stop. I didn't want to give them the drama. This wasn't a scandal, it was a long overdue severance. I was finally free from the rope that she had used to pull herself up while dragging me down. Let me take you back to the beginning. It was a Tuesday when I received that fateful letter. It was a thick envelope with the official seal of the bank. Inside was a balance notice for $560,000. The mortgage was delinquent, and foreclosure was threatened. The problem was, I had never bought a house. I sat in my kitchen, my hands shaking as I read the fine print. My name, my social security number, and my signature were all forged. For 2 hours, I thought I was losing my mind. Then I called the number at the bottom of the letter. A kind-sounding voice on the other end said, "Ma'am, we confirmed your identity on the purchase back in July. The deed lists you as the primary owner." I asked for the address. It was a 3-hour drive away, a luxury property with a pool, marble counters, and a 4-car garage. And I knew right away who had done it. My sister, Lily, had always been reckless. She was the kind of person who would borrow things that weren't hers without asking. She had borrowed my clothes, my car, and even my credit card once to book a vacation for a boyfriend she dumped mid-flight. But this was a whole new level. This was fraud, a federal crime. I filed a police report that same day. The officer looked at me and asked, "Do you want to press charges?" My chest burned, not with hate, but with the weight of a deep-seated betrayal. I could feel it in my lungs when I breathed. I whispered, "Yes." And then I waited. I didn't scream at her, didn't send her a warning, not even a hint. I waited until Sunday, family dinner. Everyone was at the table. Lily was glowing in her designer dress, bragging about her real estate luck. My mom, who was always overly indulgent, clapped, and my dad, who was usually quiet, laughed. She winked at me as if nothing had happened. I reached into my purse, pulled out the envelope, and slid it across the table. "Funny," I said, "you bought your dream house with my nightmare." She opened it, and when she saw the police stamp, the charges, and the pending mugshot, her face went pale. Her fork clattered to the table, and there was a moment of stunned silence. "You wouldn't," she whispered. I leaned back, calm as ever. "You already did." I'm just returning the favor. She stood up so fast that the chair screeched. Her eyes were wide and her voice was shaking. You're going to ruin my life. I didn't blink. No. You did that the moment you signed my name and put a mansion on my credit score. My mom reached for the papers as if she could smooth out the mess, as if this was just a simple mistake instead of first-degree identity theft. Let's talk about this privately, she whispered. We're family. I laughed, a low and sharp laugh. Family doesn't take out a $560,000 loan while their sister is paying off student debt and driving a 12-year-old car. My dad, who had been silent throughout dinner, finally spoke. You don't need to involve the police. I turned to him. You knew. He looked away. That silence was more painful than anything. They knew what Lily had done, and they let me carry the burden of her recklessness once again. I packed up my folder, put the papers back in my bag neatly, and looked around the table. You all thought I was too quiet, too focused, too boring to notice. You forgot I'm the one who checks the numbers. Lily reached out as if she could fix it. I'll pay it back. I promise. I shook my head. With what? Your fake real estate job? The influencer career you built on lies? The room felt frozen. The air was thick with a decade of lies that I had finally brought to light. I wanted to believe, I said quietly, that this family would protect me. But I was just the signature they needed when no one else trusted them. As I left, Lily collapsed into her chair, crying as if there were cameras watching. But I didn't stop, didn't turn, didn't look back. That night, the detective called. We served her. She's facing felony fraud, and the DA's fast tracking the case. She's not getting out of this one. I didn't smile or gloat. Some victories don't feel good, they just feel necessary, heavy, and final. By Thursday, her mugshot leaked. She looked hollow, no filters, no lashes. It was a face stripped of entitlement, staring at a reality she never thought would catch up with her. It spread like wildfire, shared in local groups, circulated in real estate circles, and retweeted with words like fraud. Con artist. Using her sister's name. Her agency dropped her within hours, and her sponsorships vanished. My inbox was filled with messages. Some were from mutual friends, others from strangers. She used to act so high and mighty. We always wondered how she could afford that place. She deserves every bit of it. But the one that really stuck with me was from an old teacher. You were always the quiet one. She was the loud star. But look who was building something real all along. I was left to clean up the mess of a house I never bought, never visited, and never wanted. The bank didn't care about family drama, they cared about money. The mortgage was still legally tied to me. So I met with a lawyer, a sharp-looking man in a sharp suit with an even sharper mind. He glanced over the police report and said, "We'll file for damages, civil fraud, and we'll subpoena every cent she spent in your name." That was good news because I had receipts, real ones, for the marble counters, the down payment, and the $12,000 fridge that she showed off in her Instagram reels. That weekend, she called me from a blocked number, crying and begging. They're going to take the house. Mom won't help. Please, just tell them I had your consent. I was silent for a moment, then I asked, when you signed my name, were you thinking about me? She stuttered, paused, and said nothing. I hung up. She had made her choice, and I chose freedom. The following week, the eviction notice went up on her front door. Neighbors whispered, and one even filmed it. She was yelling at the officers, screaming that it was all a misunderstanding. But the bank had evidence, a signed police report and my name notarized without my knowledge. She was given 72 hours to vacate. She spent 71 hours throwing tantrums and the last hour disappearing. The night before, my mom called. Her voice was low and tired. She's scared, sweetheart. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive her? I closed my laptop. You're asking the wrong daughter for grace. She sighed. You don't know what it's like to lose everything. I replied, no, Mom. I know exactly what it's like. I've spent 10 years losing pieces of myself just to keep you all comfortable. She said, we didn't raise you to be so cold. I smiled bitterly. No. You raised me to be convenient. And I hung up. The next morning, I drove past the house. It wasn't out of pity or revenge, it was for closure. The porch was littered with boxes, fake designer bags, framed prints of fake affirmations, and a shattered mirror. In the middle of it all was Lily, no makeup, no filtered angles. She was just a woman who had built her castle on someone else's name and watched it crumble. She saw my car and ran towards it, tears streaming down her face, her mascara smudged. Please, just tell them I didn't mean it. I rolled the window down just a little. You meant it every time you signed my name. Every time you smiled for the camera, knowing it was built on my identity. She cried harder, but I didn't flinch. I don't need you to go to jail, I said. I just need you to finally live without me. Then I rolled the window up and drove off. For the first time in years, my hands didn't shake, my chest didn't ache, and my voice was truly mine again. By Monday, the calls started. It wasn't Lily, it was the rest of the family. Aunt Clara, Uncle Robert, and even Grandma, who used to call me the quiet failure. She's your sister. Blood is thicker. She's learned her lesson. Do you really want her to go to jail? They didn't ask what she had done, they asked why I wasn't covering it up better, as if I was the problem, not the forged documents, not the six-figure fraud, not the decade of silence while she burned bridges with my name on them. I said the same thing to each of them. I didn't ruin her life. I just refused to keep funding it. The truth is, you're not upset about the crime, you're upset that someone finally pulled the curtain back. The golden daughter, the charming sister, the one you all liked better. She wasn't golden, she was just a shiny shell overwrought. That week, my face showed up in a blog. One of Lily's influencer friends wrote a pity post, "When family betrays family, how jealousy ruins lives." They used my LinkedIn photo, no name, just enough clues to make me the villain. The comment section was on fire until someone from college dropped the truth. Actually, her sister stole her identity to buy a mansion. Bank statements and police reports prove it. There was silence, and then the post was deleted. It was almost comical how quickly people changed their tune when the lie no longer served them. As the court date approached, my lawyer called. They were trying to offer a plea, restitution, probation. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the skyline I had built with my own hard work. Every brick was paid for in full, every late-night shift, every dream I had chased alone. I said, I never wanted her behind bars. I just wanted her out of my life. I'm not chasing pain, I'm chasing peace. And peace means letting go, not out of mercy, but because some people don't deserve a permanent place in your story. After the court hearing, 2 weeks passed with no calls, no texts. Just silence. The kind of silence that they used to use as a weapon against me, but now it was healing. I walked through my apartment barefoot, the sun warming the hardwood floors. Peace felt like that warmth under my feet and a cup of coffee without the looming crisis. Then the letter arrived. It was handwritten from my mom. Inside was a folded photo of me and Lily when we were 10, in matching dresses with forced smiles. Beneath it was a note. I raised 2 daughters. One just made more mistakes. Please come to the family dinner this Sunday. Let's talk like we used to. Like we used to? I thought. When I was the one funding everything behind the scenes while being called selfish in public? When helping meant keeping my mouth shut and opening my wallet? I placed the photo on the table, stared at it for a long time, and then dropped it in the shredder. I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't the quiet one, the fixer, or the disposable daughter. Later that day, a cousin called. They're planning a big apology. Dinner, speeches, even a gift. A gift? I said, they already gave me the best one, distance. He laughed nervously. You're really not coming, huh? No, I said. They don't want to apologize. They want to reset without taking any responsibility. Well, what should I tell them? Tell them I'm thriving, and they don't get access to my life. That Sunday, while they were pouring wine and rehearsing hollow apologies in a house I once helped save from foreclosure, I was watching a play. Surrounded by strangers who laughed without envy and cried without shame. People who didn't need me to shrink to fit their spotlight. That night, I slept with the windows open. There was no guilt, no shame. Just the wind, my breath, and a peace that felt like finally choosing myself. A final email came in from Lily's lawyer. She's agreed to pay restitution if you sign a forgiveness statement. Forgiveness? As if a signature could erase the sleepless nights, the constant checking of my credit score, the job offers I lost because of her debt. I closed the email without replying. Instead, I opened the title deed to my new home, paid in full, in my name, signed with a steady hand. That night, I hosted a small dinner for friends I had chosen. We toasted over candlelight, laughed without whispers. When someone asked, do they ever try to reach out anymore? I said, probably, but I stopped checking. They nodded because they understood that healing doesn't need an audience, it needs space. I walked outside after dinner, looking up at the stars. They were silent witnesses to a woman who finally stopped bleeding for people who called it love. I whispered, I survived you. And then I outgrew you. There was no applause, just the sound of a door inside me locking for good. I didn't want revenge, I wanted peace. And now, I finally have it. I am Abigail, and I walk tall with my own name, my own home, and no one left to apologize to.